On today's show, we'll take a step back in time with a muzzleloader hunter by the name of John Hayes, who goes hunting the old-fashioned way. And it's that time of year, Frostbite. Take heed of some precautions from the folks at HCMC. And later, our classic takes us back to one of my favorite destinations, Old Harbor, Alaska. You got 'em. Those stories and more next.
Minnesota's select GMC dealers present Minnesota Bound. From the North Country, here's Ron Sherck and Raven, the Black Lab.
Hi everybody, Raven and I welcome you to the show. You know, the last deer hunting in Minnesota is something called the muzzleloader season. Now the muzzleloader is a weapon, well, an antique so to speak. But you're going to meet a muzzleloader hunter who also likes to live the antique way.
Come the cold November season, the woods wake to the near silent sounds of those who pursue wild game.
I'm always scouting deer.
John Hayes hunts
I'm always interested in deer.
his way.
But I saw some movement down in here. There's two kinds of camouflage. There's cover, you know, the color, and then there's slow movement.
John is one small part of the muzzle-loading phenomenon making a giant comeback. Muzzleloaders, rifles loaded through the end of the barrel.
I went switch to the southeast.
But to watch John is to understand he hunts,
That's where I jumped up that 4-point.
and frankly, lives by a different creed. First off, that rifle of his.
There is a disbelief on their part when they see me walking around with this.
It's a Virginia gun, historically accurate from the mid-1700s.
A rifle like this would have been made by a Virginia, like a James River, Williamsburg trained gunsmith.
Yeah. I can see that right there. You see it was made just before the snow hit.
He hunts as settlers did 250 years ago.
The squirrel.
It's all about the intimate details of staying quiet, moving slowly,
Even the bear climbing up the tree.
and tracking.
You hear that? Like a deer. It's orange. They can see them orange.
His passion, not so much in the gun itself, but the time in history the Virginia gun represents.
So when I'm out in the woods with the muzzleloader, using the clothing, it's just a way for me to touch that part of history. And for that brief second or 10 seconds or half a minute, you're there. You're there. Whether it be 1750 or 1776 or something like that, you're there.
Maybe that's why John's become accomplished, writing about the muzzle-loading lifestyle.
When I encounter people and they ask about my gun, the first words out of their mouth generally are something a little snide and saying, does that really work?
John's answer:
I've taken squirrels, grouse, bear, deer, elk, just about everything in that respect, with this rifle right here. I know it probably better than any other gun. I can honestly tell them I've shot more deer with this gun than any other gun I own.
While modern muzzleloaders look rather high-tech compared to their historic counterparts, John's guns work very well. Plus, they're just plain cool.
See if I can hit that X right there.
Reloading is a bit of a process, but John's pretty good. He can load powder, cut the linen patch, and tap in and pack the load.
There we go.
It all takes him about 20 seconds.
Here we go.
Then, flint hits steel.
That's great. We have contests in which we shoot items at 10, 20, 30, 50 yards, and so on. And we're looking at 10 and 20 yards hitting things the size of a lifesaver, driving tacks through a board.
But for John, the rush comes in the woods.
I don't consider it moving backwards. I'm taking something that works. It's been proven to work from history.
He also shoots a lot.
My goal is to shoot it 9 months every year because you encounter all sorts of conditions. And then loading the muzzleloader effectively, shooting it effectively in all those conditions. And you really don't know, you don't have that first-hand experience unless you actually get out and do it.
But guns aside, to see the rest of John's story is to understand his passion for history stretches past, way past, a simple love of the hunt.
And spices in here.
When we return, more about John and his beloved passion for muzzleloader hunting.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers. Renewal by Anderson, makers of quality replacement windows and doors. Connecticut, better water flows from better thinking. And by Ice Force, proven hard water gear.
Let's continue now as Bill Sherck brings us the story of the very unique muzzleloader hunter.
John Hayes hunts, but spend enough time with him and you realize his love of muzzleloading stretches far beyond that gun and the woods. John's basement sheds a little light on his passion.
What you're looking at right here are shells that are done in the typical 18th century style right here, which is actually made from a tire from a wagon wheel. The representative of tables that I would find in 18th century homes or taverns.
John built part of his house to represent colonial living, accurate right down to the lath and plaster walls and the port wine in the old hand-blown glass bottles.
I've got coverings for different bowls, and there's spices in here. Generally, I keep my coffee in a grinder.
He laid brick for a fireplace.
And we use it for everything. We use it for cooking, and I can hang kettles, pots, and things of that nature. When I think of being primitive and going back to the woods and hunting, just being out there, just doing things historically speaking, this room represents what I like to do. So anytime I can mix history and hunting or history in the outdoors, I'm in my element. We've got a main table right here, and we've had a number of get-togethers, and we've had great feasts where we've cooked deer meat and goose and things like that in the fireplace. I guess I've always had a penchant for that era, and part of it is probably due to watching some of those old shows like Daniel Boone.
John also grew up in Northern Virginia.
Washington's home, Mount Vernon, and see some of these old buildings and just old ways of life. And that's always stuck with me.
Even now,
I get excited to hunt still.
when he gears up for the woods, he does so accurately.
Be in my element, which is that 18th century style.
With clothes he makes using old patterns and fabrics.
This is how I hunt, yeah.
Layer after layer after layer of wool, cotton, hemp.
Getting there. These are garters. They give me that cow's knee, or that billow at my knee that makes it easier to walk through the woods.
Keep in mind, 250 years ago, blaze orange didn't exist.
They're 18th century cut of cloth.
Just the lawful color these days.
And this is a cape frock, and it goes over top of everything. And it simply buttons up here, and I gather it right here and then wear it with a belt.
Figures John would meet a gal who shared his interests.
She makes her own clothing as well. As a matter of fact, our wedding was in an 18th century style as well. The dress that Martha Washington wore is in the Smithsonian, and that's where she took her pattern from.
They handcrafted their home too.
Well, the lifestyle is something that I'm wanting to learn as much as I can, but I'm also enjoying the atmosphere that it brings. It's just a way for me to touch that part of history.
So next time you see John Hayes walking the woods, pay attention. You might just learn something. John sure did.
When I go into the woods or when I'm out doing this, I want to use the stuff that my ancestors used, that our forefathers used. And it gives me a platform to learn. It gives me definitely a platform to appreciate what they went through.
Do you know the signs of frostbite? It's time to learn before Old Man Winter catches you by surprise. That's next.
Closed captioning for Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Joe's Sporting Goods.
Coming up, the season of frostbite. Hands, toes, nose, you name it. What do you need to know about that? The experts at Hennepin County Medical Center have the answer.
Winter in Minnesota means more than sneezes, ice fishing, or wind chills. It also means something called frost nip, or the more serious frostbite.
Frost nip is what a lot of us experience when we're outside for a long time. We come in, our feet get warm and red and tingle, and you feel like the blood flow is coming back to them. That's something that many of us have experienced. It's completely reversible. There's no tissue damage. Frostbite is actually where you have frozen the tissues.
In other words, the threat of frostbite is serious stuff in near-zero winter air.
Generally, most patients that we see that come in with significant frostbite are those that have been out drinking. We're frequently not properly dressed when we're going out for the evening. You know, as you know, the wind doesn't really change. It's all about the temperature. It also has to do with our age and how well we perfuse. And that's why we tend to frostbite areas that are distal, like our ear tips, our fingertips, our toe tips. Elderly population that don't have very good blood flow can get frozen parts much more quickly, and they don't have as good a feeling. So it can happen, you know, in as little as 5-10 minutes in really bitterly cold weather without proper attire. My recommendation is if you're concerned, you think you may have frostbite, you should immediately come to the emergency department at HCMC and be evaluated. The one about unthawing in a slow fashion using water and ice is wrong. But the one that is right is aloe vera is a very good topical, both for the treatment of burns and frostbite. It has lots of anti-inflammatory things. And the aloe vera isn't anything special. It's the stuff you buy at Walmart. Right. It's just try to get stuff without coloring or scent. And I think that's the key, is dress in layers. Try to go in and out of the house, check especially for those of us that have bad sensation in our fingers or toes, you need to be especially cautious. Mittens are better than gloves. And don't forget to put on headgear. It's all really important. And if you don't need to be outside, treat it seriously like you would a summer storm. If you don't need to go somewhere, stay in. You know, do things around the house.
Hi, I'm Rob Drieslein, Managing Editor of the Outdoor News Publications. Happy birthday to the Clean Water Act. The important 1972 federal environmental law marks 40 years in 2012. Back in the early 1970s, more than 60% of America's lakes, rivers, and coastal waters were considered unsafe for swimming and fishing. Fish kills were common, and there were increasing health worries about the nation's drinking water supply. There was even a river in Ohio that started on fire several times. Now, the Clean Water Act of 1972, which President Richard Nixon signed, changed all that. As Clean Water Act supporters celebrate its 40th anniversary, conservation groups are calling on hunters and anglers to continue to fight to preserve the nation's lakes, rivers, streams, and wetlands. They say such protections go hand in hand with the hunting and fishing lifestyle that we cherish here in Minnesota. The Clean Water Act passed Congress overwhelmingly with bipartisan support in 1972. Remember that word, bipartisan? Yet today there have been efforts in the recent Congress to limit some of the Clean Water Act's protections. We've come a long way in 40 years, so make sure that your state or federal legislator knows that we're not interested in rolling back protections on clean water. For updates on all conservation matters at the state legislature and at the U.S. Congress this winter, check out a print subscription to Outdoor News or view us online at outdoornews.com. I'm Rob Drieslein.
Hey, Bill Sherck, the man about the woods here. This time of year when temperatures get bitterly cold, I've got a tip to help keep your auger running as it should. The tip is this: every time you fuel up at the gas station, buy the super fuel, the premium fuel. When I'm talking about, there's like regular unleaded that's 89 octane rating. Get the good stuff like 91 or 92. Why? Well, in this part of the country during the winter months, the fuel companies actually put extra additives into the fuel, and it's meant to help keep engines and motors running more smoothly, especially when the temperatures get so darn cold. So, next time you go to the gas station, fuel up with the good stuff for your auger. Check it out. This is the end result.
Coming up, our classic takes us to the wilds of Alaska and salmon fishing at a place called Old Harbor.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Ellsworth Cooperative Creamery. Hennepin County Medical Center, bringing outdoor safety tips from the experts at HCMC to your mobile device. And by Seven Clans Casino.
Welcome back. You know, our Minnesota Bound Classic this week is sort of a holiday gift to you as we take you to Alaska. If you've never been to Alaska, you should go, and coming up is the reason why.
When they say Old Harbor in Alaska, well, they mean it.
Well, there's several archaeological sites here dating back 7,500 years. They've been here a while.
Welcome to the village of Old Harbor on a remote chunk of Kodiak Island. This was a Russian settlement a long time ago until William Seward purchased Alaska in 1867. Now only the Russian names are left behind.
The straits that are here are Cyclitic Straits, as well as the island that protects Old Harbor.
A quiet spot, an eagle perching place. Old Harbor is quiet until the kings arrive.
This is the king. Doing great, nice and fluent. There you go. I've been guiding for 14 years now. I was commercial fishing initially, and every spare moment I had, I was either hunting or fishing. And being remote like we are, we had people coming in, staying at the lodge, and pretty soon it got to be, well, if you're going to go down there, get a hold of Gary, and he'll take you out and go fishing.
There's only one fishing lodge in Old Harbor, and this is it, Cyclitic Lodge.
We've done several remodels since, but the actual facility has been in operation since '89.
The king salmon waters off Old Harbor are also relatively untouched.
There is no roads here. There is no road system. We have 4 boats, and there's a few other operators here. So when you go out, the most you're going to see is 5 or 6 boats on 400 miles of coastline.
And you'll see one more thing, hooks baited with herring, leading to tight lines and dancing fishing rods.
There you go. Just let him have it. Doing great. Aside from fun, what more you want to know?
We're going to get lucky here.
They're a 4 and sometimes 5-year spawning fish. They can range anywhere from 15 to 80 pounds is the biggest that we've landed. This year 77 was the biggest. We've had bigger fish on, but we haven't been able to put them on board. Trolling is certainly the most effective method. There's times when the numbers of fish that are in the area aren't as abundant as other times. Therefore, you're what we call hunting for them. And trolling allows you to cover a much broader area.
Oh, what a problem to have in Old Harbor.
You got him.
So many kings to catch, and only about 4 months to catch them.
Busted a line.
I get to take grown adults and watch them turn into 12-year-old kids. I never get tired of that. Some days are tougher than others with the numbers of fish that a person will put on board, but nonetheless, everybody turns into a kid, and you never get tired of that.
Are you still a kid?
Every day.
Me kid too.
There we go.
Every day.
All right.
Nice fish, Ron. Woo.
Nice to know the salmon are still running in Alaska. Well, that about does it for us. Remember, introduce a kid to the great outdoors. I'm Ron Sherck, and of course, are you listening? The star of the show is Raven.
Guests appearing on Minnesota Bound receive gift certificates to Crave Restaurants. Fresh, vibrant, America. Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. For more information on these stories and more, catch us on the web at mnbound.com.